People always overcook prime rib, but not anymore. Chop, 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 stack those up, light this on fire, and here we go. The smoke's rolling on my offset, and I'm placing a pan over the fire to heat up. Now let's take a look at the meat. This is a standing prime rib roast, a 2-boner. If I cook it wrong, I'll have a thick ring of overcooked meat on the edges, which is gross, and I don't want that. I want medium rare from edge to edge, and I have a plan to achieve just that, by searing it first and then smoking it low and slow on my offset. But wait, we need to do something first. We need to apply some rub to this prime rib, a little bit of kosher salt, a bit of pepper, and a medium bit of Sure Shot Sid's original gunpowder rub will season this prime rib nicely. Sure Shot Sid's has an awesome lineup of rubs with next level ingredients, and they all go great on any kind of barbecue, including prime rib. I'm using this original rub on the roast to give it a head start on darkening up the color, and it has some natural grill flavor to also give it an edge in the flavor department. You can get your own Sure Shot Sid's rubs using the link in the description section below, and I highly recommend you do. They're really good. After 30 minutes soaking up that rub, it goes onto the hot pan that we put on the offset smoker to sear for 30 seconds per side. This is going to help the roast develop a nice tasty crust and develop that Maillard reaction that tastes really good. It's best to use a cast iron pan for this because a regular pan, like the one I'm unfortunately using here, will cool down super fast after you sear just one side, and when you flip it over to sear the other side, it just won't really sear that well. That liquid you see in the pan is beef tallow, but if you don't have any beef tallow, you can just use your favorite oil for frying. Just make sure you choose something with a high smoke point. Then the pan and grate comes off of the firebox. I throw another split in, and we're moving over to the cook chamber. The roast goes to the back left of the smoker, as far from the fire as possible. I'm using a piece of foil as a blocker just to block that radiant heat from burning the prime rib. And I'm adding a water pan to mellow out the heat and make temperature control a lot easier. After an hour at 225 degrees Fahrenheit, the prime rib should look something like this. A bit darker, a lot smokier, and approximately 75 degrees Fahrenheit internal. Nowhere near done. Now, if you want more smoke flavor, you can continue to smoke it for another hour or two, however long you want, really. But I find with medium rare beef, a lot of smoke flavor just doesn't go very well with it. It's not like a brisket where people expect a ton of smoke flavor. When they bite into a piece of prime rib or a steak, they're not expecting that intense smoky flavor. So less is more in this case. And now I'm wrapping it up tight in tallow-soaked butcher paper. I'm placing it in a pan with half a cup of water added, and I'm foiling it tightly. This is going to preserve the crust that we developed by searing it and smoking it, and it's going to prevent it from getting steamed, while we still provide an environment that is going to help it cook nice and easily so we get a perfect medium rare consistency. Speaking of easy, it now goes into the oven at 175 degrees Fahrenheit so it can slowly come up to temperature to my target temperature of 128 degrees Fahrenheit, which for me happened in 4.5 hours, but it may take longer for you if you have a larger roast, or it may take less time if you have a smaller roast. I just watched the temperature graph on my Thermoworks Signals, and I was able to guesstimate when it would be done based on how many degrees it increased every 30 minutes. It was pretty consistent, so I could do the math pretty easily. And if your temps are increasing way too slow and you think you're going to be late for dinner, just crank up the oven temperature to 225 until you're back on track. Now the roast rests on the counter for 30 minutes, and it'll carry over cook to 130 degrees, which is perfect medium rare. Now I can slice into it anytime I want, or I can continue to rest it if it's not quite time for dinner. In the unlikely event that you get done way ahead of dinner, then you can just rest it down to about 115 to 120 degrees and then pop it back in the oven at 175 degrees oven temperature until it comes back up to 128 degrees, and then you can serve it up for dinner. All right, first things first, let's cut the bone off of this roast, and we'll set that to the side. Now let's give this a slice and we'll see how medium rare it is. All right, let's give this a taste. Really good, perfectly medium rare, really salty, but what I like to do is put a little bit of extra salt right here, and then you just get an extra little bit of flavor inside the meat. That's where it's at. It's super good. The only thing that I would improve, I mean, the texture is amazing. It's perfectly medium rare from edge to edge. There's none of that gray area around the outside of the roast. The only thing that I would improve is I probably would have seared it at a little bit of a higher temperature at the very beginning to get a nicer crust and Maillard reaction. And that was kind of my bad for not using a cast iron pan. I used a steel pan over the Oklahoma Joe's fire instead. So just getting a little bit of a better sear, this would have been perfect. Still very good though.